When I look back at my life, Pastor, I break it down into 3 areas, man. Mercy, grace, and favor.
Mm-hmm. Favor.
Favor.
Last one. Yeah.
I had mercy even before I knew Christ, that in all the things I had done as a young person, I didn't get killed. I didn't end up in prison. And I can tell you, most of the guys I hung out with very few exceptions, and I'm one of those exceptions, most of those guys are dead or in prison today. Mm-hmm. And God just showed me mercy. Why me?
Well, folks, welcome back to another little session here that we call There Is More. There is more. More than just what your name is, more than just what your street address is, more than even what your job assignment may be. There is more to be found in a relationship with Christ. And we welcome you today. Thank you for coming, for joining us. And I really am excited to just hear my friend and my brother in the Lord, J.J. Jorge.
Yes, sir.
Who is with us today. and he's just got a great story. Just a great story. Now let's start with your name. All right? Let's start. You ought to start there. That's amazing. What is your real name?
Yeah. So my full legal name is Jeronimo Jorge.
Geronimo,
just like the Indian.
Yeah.
I was named after my grandfather.
Yeah.
And the JJ, where the JJ comes from is, my original name was Geronimo spelled with the J. My last name was Jorge spelled with the J.
Yeah.
So growing up, family, friends, everybody called me JJ.
Yeah.
1986, I had an opportunity to become an American citizen. And I was at the clerk's office filing the paperwork, and the lady says, "Would you like to change your name?" I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, this is the one and only time you could do it."
How about that?
And well, every book I had ever read or anything I ever saw that had the name Geronimo was not spelled with the J, it was spelled with the G.
G, yeah.
So I dropped the J and I put the G in there. And that just drove my parents crazy because I was named after my grandfather.
Sure.
So needless to say, the JJ stuck, and I've been called JJ my whole life from friends and family. But the legal name is Geronimo with the G.
So you mentioned that you became an American citizen.
Yeah.
Was that from, where was that from? Where did you move from?
Yeah, actually, so I was born in Cuba.
Okay.
Came to the United States in the late 60s. Well after the Cuban Revolution, where Castro had come into power, well after, the Bay of Pigs and the whole missile crisis at that time. And my parents just had the foresight that there was not going to be a future in Cuba for us. And selfishly, if they did anything right in our lives, was that.
No.
And we began the process to come to the United States. It was a long, drag out process, but after several years of being in a lottery system, our ticket came up to come to the U.S. However, that year, my mom got pregnant with me.
Whoa.
And you were not allowed to come to the U.S. and have a baby here at that time. So the way it worked is my parents had to give our lotto ticket to the next family in line.
Wow.
And then go back into the system, wait for our ticket to come up. So I was 4 years old when I came to the United States. It took 4 years for our visas to come back up and in the lottery system, which still plays out today that way. And we came to the U.S., landed in New York, of all places.
Do you remember that?
I do not.
Yeah.
I do not.
You were about 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4. My parents, my dad's side of the family is on the East Coast, predominantly New York area. And my mom's side of the family was on the West Coast. We flew to New York, where my grandmother was on my dad's side. And the first winter there, my parents were like, "We're out of here." You know, they grew up.
Winter got them.
They grew up in a tropical island, and yeah, that first winter. There's a picture of. There's 4 siblings. I'm the baby of 4, and there's a picture of my dad and the 4 of us standing in front of his 1968 Falcon under 4 foot of snow, and my dad's like, "Nope, we're out of here." So we moved to Miami, where all the Cubans are, and that didn't last very long. Years later, I'd asked my mom, why did we ever leave Miami? And she was like, "Oh, there was too many Cubans there, man."
Too many Cubans.
Too many Cubans. And we're Cuban.
Yeah.
But my aunt on my mom's side married to my uncle. My uncle was a political prisoner in Cuba, had gone against the revolution. He actually escaped on a boat and came to Florida on a boat, and he got out of Cuba. And, you know, long story short, they were settled in Los Angeles, and my aunt basically talked my folks into going to LA. And we packed everything up, moved to Los Angeles, and that's pretty much where I grew up till I came to Texas. So
you were how old when you hit LA?
Probably 6, 7. You know, we bounced probably the first 2 years. We're not very long in New York. We were not very long in Miami, and when we got to LA, we had family there as well, and we got settled in, and my dad started working hard, and I credit, you know, my brother and my sister, myself, we have a tremendous work ethic, and that comes from my dad.
What was his skill? What would he do?
He was just a laborer. Just, you know, he initially came and he worked different factory jobs, and he got into grocery deliveries, and got into different crafts, but he just worked really hard, and whatever it was to pay the bills. And you know, I remember being in junior high, and my dad had 3 boys, and so if he got a job to move an office from like one floor to the next, well, he didn't go out and hire a bunch of people. He went to school and got his boys out of school. And we loved it because we got to spend the day with dad, you know. And so we all went. We were all pretty fit guys. And yeah, my brother, my 2 brothers and myself, we'd spend the day with dad and move a company or move an office, and he'd bring all the money home. And he's got an amazing story too. He since passed, but by the end of his life, he got in with the company called Allied Aviation out of LAX Airport in Los Angeles. He started as a bag handler, and by the time he retired, he was operations manager for all of LAX, handling their luggages. So my dad was a hard worker, man. He came to this country, and he just never wanted a handout. He just said, let me put my feet in this country and my kids in this country, and I'll take care of the rest. And he always instilled in us that we were guests of the United States.
Really?
Always. Really? Even in my younger years, when I was getting in a lot of trouble, and my dad would get in my face and say, "This is not why we sacrificed to bring you guys here. You know, we are visitors in this country. This country accepted us and gave us an opportunity, and we're to be good citizens of it." And to the day he died, he held that mantra, you know.
Okay, so that's an amazing legacy, and that's something.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have some of that same memory of my dad, who was a pastor, but he was also a hard worker. I knew that I could impress him if I would work hard, you know. And one of the biggest things that would get to him about his only son is that he felt like I was lazy, you know. So I didn't want to be accused of that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're in LA, and you're coming into middle school.
Yeah, I was, you know, growing up in LA, and, you know, my parents were good. They were good people. They were good people. They were hard workers. They did the best they could, you know, with what they knew. And they put a roof over our head. We were never hungry, you know. But growing up, you know, I started to really just hang out with the wrong crowd. I mean, probably well into the latter part of my junior high school and going into high school, I was already making some pretty bad decisions. My brother, there's three of us, and my older brother. So there's my sister's the oldest, then I have an older brother and a middle brother, and then myself. My middle brother died. He passed away in 1983 of a tumor that had just grown practically overnight.
Wow.
And collapsed his windpipe. And
Oh.
so by the time he got home from school, he was having a hard time breathing. He fainted. You know, he had locks of oxygen going to his brain for about 32 minutes, and he was pronounced brain dead.
And y'all had no idea that was going on?
We had no idea. He wasn't living with us at the time. He was living with my aunt. And so, you know, that was at that time, maybe the third or fourth case in the United States. So they kept him on a breathing machine for about 2 weeks. And then called us in, and the medical staff walked us through what had happened to him and where he was, and basically gave my parents an option. A, you can take him home like this, and he'll be on a machine the rest of his life and probably never wake up. Or B, you can pull the plug. And so my parents decided to pull the plug, and my brother passed away. And that was, my brother was into some bad stuff. I was kind of following in his footsteps, and right when he passed, it just kind of, it put me in a bad headspace where I just started to escalate things. And
how old were you at this time?
I was probably, 13, 14 at the time. And I got recruited by a local drug dealer in the neighborhood. We grew up right on Vermont and Melrose, which is right across the street from Los Angeles City College, not far from the observatory, not far from Hollywood. I said growing up, so funny that the police, that show Cops on TV, if you just sat on the porch of our house, that was it every day.
Wow.
That was the kind of neighborhood. A lot of good families, hardworking families, but there was a bad element. So we got recruited young by a drug dealer, and the reason he recruited you young was because we were all minors at the time, and if we got in trouble, it would be a slap on the wrist. And so a lot of the kids he recruited were clean cut, good looking, no tattoos. He had a process, because what he figured was, don't look the part. Don't ever look the part, And I got recruited young, and I started dealing drugs for him, marijuana, and then it escalated to cocaine, and then we got into cocaine and acid, and I would sell it at the local parks. And oddly enough, my biggest spot, there was a Catholic church right across the street from our house. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit the building. And the spot where I stood to sell my drugs were on the steps of that church at night.
At night.
And locals knew, who we were, and they knew who to go to. And that was kind of my spot, And every time there was a police raid, they were just confused, because I was clean cut, dressed well, always, not looking the part. And so the police would just dismiss me as, hey, you're in the wrong place. Wow. You need to get out of here. Little did they know I was probably one of the guys pushing the most dope at that time there. And we had about 5 or 6, 7 of us that had been recruited. So there was a lot of tension between my parents and I, obviously.
They knew?
They had a sense, because they knew the element. We grew up in a neighborhood where, I tell you, Pastor, I was whooped by every mother on that street. That's just the neighborhood that we grew up in.
somebody else's mom.
We knew everybody
We'd
in
come
that
after
neighborhood.
you. Yeah.
Everyone knew everybody.
Yeah.
And if they caught you doing something wrong, they wouldn't like walk you to home. They'd whoop you right there and then walk you to your home, you know? So all the families kind of knew each other, but they also knew there was a bad element in the neighborhood. And, you know, I did a pretty good job of faking it as much as I could, you know, and put a facade with my parents. But they knew because about a year or so after my brother passed, the authorities were just cracking down on crime, cracking down on drugs, and a detective knocked on my parents' door looking for me.
A detective
Asking for me. And turns out that they wanted to talk to me, and the heat was really coming down on the drug scene at that time. And, you know, they were looking for me, not necessarily because of what I did. I mean, outside of selling drugs, there was something that had gone, there was a shooting that had gone on in the neighborhood. I was associated with the crowd, and so they wanted to talk to everybody. And that's when my mom said, you know, he's in trouble. He's in trouble. And we got to get him out of here. And so my sister was living in San Antonio. And my mom called her and said, hey, your brother needs help. He's going down a bad road.
You're old. How old are you at this point?
I was 15, 16, you know. And my sister was like, hey, you need to come down, let things cool off. I am here in San Antonio for a year doing a probationary period. Why don't you come down and come live with me? And when the year's up, we'll go back to LA. We'll let things cool off. So I waited a few months and ultimately made the decision to come. And so I came 1984. I got to Texas, and you know, and I hated it when I first got here because I thought it was pretty backwoods, you know, at the time, and it just wasn't my personality, and I struggled with it at first, and dropped out of school. Had no direction in life, didn't know where I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. All the money I had made up until that time was illegitimate, you know. I didn't know how to really go out and get a job. If I back up a little bit, you know, from the spiritual aspect, my mom was a medium. She was a spiritist.
Wow. Very
Prevalent in Latin culture, you know. Growing up, that's the church. That's what I was exposed to. And my mom, everything she ever did, she did for good. But you know, you get saved, you read the Bible, you start to learn, wow, there's only one God, and we're not to have any idols before him. And while my mom, in the disguise of doing good, I mean, it was cultish, you know, where she would have spirits come in her, and we do animal sacrifices. We'd have basically church at home, at our home. And, you know, different Latin families would come with illnesses and, you know, sickness or people needing help with their marriage, whatever the case. And my mom would practice seance on them, and, you know, and we do dove sacrifices. And I used to help my dad put everything in a bag and go down the freeway and toss everything out after a service at our home. And that's the way I grew up.
Wow.
You know, never really in it, just associated because my parents were in it, and I was there, and I saw it every week.
Would your mom become another person when that
Absolutely.
was going on? I mean,
Absolutely.
You could tell there was something that had come on her.
Something would take over her, and you know, and she'd talk differently. She'd act differently. One of the spirits was crippled, and when that spirit came upon her, man, she'd get crippled almost. And so that's what I saw growing up.
From Cuba with that?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was not something picked up in.
No, they groomed her early as a child, and you know, she dabbled in that in Cuba while they were in Cuba, and it continued. She accepted the Lord towards the end of her life,
In
which
time.
was awesome.
Oh, goodness.
Confirmed by good friends of ours who were pastors, and I got a story about them. But so I grew up, you know, never really understanding who God was or what God is, and never had a sense of, you know, a higher power. It was just what I had been exposed to through my parents. And so making bad decisions, getting in trouble, not really knowing where I wanted to go with my life, running from the law, came to Texas, struggled, hated it. You know, but we muddied it out, and my wife today of almost 40 years
Wow.
was working with my sister
Hmm.
at the airlines
Here in San Antonio.
here in San Antonio. They worked for Mexicana Airlines at the reservation hub, which was in San Antonio. My sister had to do a 1-year probation, and then she was able to opt to go anywhere she wanted. Her goal was always to go back to LA. My aunt was executive, you know, director over in the airline business with Mexicana. So my sister ultimately wanted to get back to LA, and I was here a few months, and she took me on a date to a nightclub. And at that age, I had a beard, I had a mustache and a beard, and I wore a double-breasted suit. Remember, you always looked the part, man. So you would never think I was a bad guy. And we walked into a nightclub called Davina's. It was actually a restaurant, but on the weekends they had a dance floor, and they played Latin music. And like a good Latin man, we loved to dance. And so I was my sister's date that night. And I walked in the restaurant, and I met Annie that night.
How about that?
And probably the best thing that ever happened.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
I know her.
Yeah.
I know her. Love her. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, where does HEB come into this? Where have you connected with?
You know, Annie and I, I was in between trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And I meet Annie. I began to just do life and become really good friends at the beginning, truly just friends. You start to hear her story, and she's got an amazing story also. And so I think that's what really brought us together. You know, she was from an abusive marriage, extremely abusive man that would beat her up and lock her up and you name it. And she was kind of here in Texas running from that. Wow. He was here at the time. So we became just really good friends. That friendship really kind of morphed into a relationship. And it was controversial, man, because she was a lot older. She had 3 kids. She was coming out of a really bad divorce with this guy that was abusive. And so when it got serious, and she was a Christian, a backsliding Christian, she would tell you today that if she was living right at that time, she probably would have never met me. But it's just amazing how God works, man. Yeah. So we started a relationship. And my sister then has since moved back to LA. I'm working odd jobs. I worked at Eckerd. I worked at Burger King, kind of like my dad, just doing different things, not really knowing where life was going to go. And as things got pretty serious with Annie and I, in the heat of me never coming to Christ, but her backsliding, she shared the gospel with me.
With you.
Yeah. In an evening that we were just sitting there at her house, and she basically said, if this was going to go anywhere, I need to get right with God, and I haven't been right with you. And She gives me the gospel, and my reaction to her was, "You're Looney Tunes, man. You're crazy." We keep working our relationship, and we're living together at this time. There's an opportunity to go back to California now. I had been gone for several years, and I'm going to meet her family for the first time. And my family really went against our union hard. My only ally was my brother, who just, my brother just loved me and said, "Man, if you're happy, man, go for it," And so my family gave us a hard time. Her family was reserved but concerned. They showed me a lot of respect. They gave me the benefit of the doubt, but they were concerned that Annie was just making another mistake. I had nothing to offer. And we fly to LA, really Riverside, West Covina area. And I'm going for my niece's baby dedication, who's 40 years old today. And she's getting dedicated. She's probably 5, 6 months old. And we walk in the church, never forget it, Faith Community Church, West Covina, California. And it's all Annie's family. And I told her, I said, "Hey, this is kind of not my deal, but this is your family. And so I'm going to let you guys sit up front." All the families that were getting dedicated, they had reserved seating up front. And I said, "I'm going to sit in the back." So I went and sat in the back, and while her family sat up there in the front. And long story short, the pastor starts. He kicks this message off on a tithe message. My wife, who at that time was really trying to get back right with God, she was so frustrated because she thought, wow, the one time I get this crazy nut in the church. But I got to explain that because it was one of these sermons that he really just focused on your true love, man. And when you fall in love with Jesus and you got to walk with Christ, all these things that are biblical that may come across as things that you have to do or must do, right, to live that Christian life, it's really all those things fall into place if you're right with the Lord. If you've got that relationship, all these other things will fall into place. The tithing, the changing of your life, all of that. So it was very little about tithing. It was all about, where's your first love? And I sat in that auditorium, decent sized church, maybe about 1,000. And I realized, wow, there's something, all these people have something bigger than themselves. And up until that time, I had made a mess of my life and I was selfish. I never really thought outside of what am I going to do? And at the end of the service, he has an altar call, man. And I get up.
Really?
I get up and I'm bawling. I'm crying at this time. Wow. And I've never been in a church. I'm sitting there. Annie had already planted the seed. But I'm sitting there and I'm looking at all these people and I'm like, wow, these people got something I don't, and I want it. I don't know what it is, but they got something that I want. And I started crying. I didn't realize why. And I woke up and I got up and I walked down the aisle. Annie's family was looking at me like, whoa. And I get on my knees, man. And I accept Jesus.
Wow.
Into my heart.
Wow.
1985. And so we get on the plane to fly back home. And I tell Annie, I need 3 things. I said, 1, I want a Bible I can read. So just get me something I can read and understand. I don't want you to tell me anything. Annie was an astute studier of the word. She still is to this day. But I told her, I said, hey, I don't want you to tell me anything. I want to discover it from my own. Number 2, we need to find a church. That's not going to put me to sleep. And number 3, we're going to get married. Yeah. In that order. So flew back into San Antonio. She bought me a Bible for dummies, I call it. Something I can really understand. Valley High Assembly of God, man, Pentecostal church. To this day, we're good friends with Pastor Elbert Smart, man, and his family. Just what a guy, just on fire for the Lord, hellfire and brimstone, man. Just it's exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Pastor, we walked in that church. We sat in the first pew on day one, man. And he was awesome. And it was just what I needed.
Yeah.
Because he was tough and he was an old country boy, man. Just and so I didn't have a job. I'm getting to how I got to HEB, but that day they announced next Saturday is a men's work day. They're building a gym. My pastor, my ex-pastor was a master electrician around building his whole life. So they were building their own gym and they were looking for a bunch of men. And he kind of nudges me and says, hey, this is an opportunity for you to go and hook up with some men. Okay, didn't have a job. I go to the gym the following Saturday. Again, that work ethic, man, I'm working. I'm humping it, man. I'm carrying everything. Towards the end of the day, the pastor and the son come up to me and they're like, hey, tell me a little bit about your story. I was new to the church. So I told them a little bit, told them I was in between jobs trying to look for work, and they had a company and they offered me a job. And I said, okay. So the son said, hey, Monday, come to my office Monday. And they owned a landscaping company, ENS Lawn Service. They did a lot of commercial properties and, and a lot of residentials, mostly not residential, mostly commercial. And I got a job with them running a maintenance crew. And so for the first 3 years of my Christian walk, I didn't know it then. And I probably didn't appreciate it then, but I appreciate it now, just being more seasoned. For the first 3 years, as we were laying PVC pipes and installing sprinkler systems, well, that's what the pastor did for that company. And there were many days where I would be able to go home and read the word, not understand a lick of it, go back to work the next day in a ditch with the pastor and say, man, you got to explain this to me because I just don't understand it. And that's what really built my Christian foundation. And, God's piecing, I tell people that God changed me on the inside and the outside. I'm completely different. If you'd have met me 40 years ago, you wouldn't recognize me. You've seen pictures of me at my house and full beard, head full of hair. And I just say, man, God did such a work in me that he changed me both from the inside and the outside. But long story short, worked with them for a few years. They sold the company. Found ourselves, in between work, and it's how I got introduced to HEB, man. And I started right here at Ritterman Road. A couple of us that had gotten all laid off because they sold the company from Houston that bought them weren't going to pick us up. We were making too much money as foremans. And I applied at HEB. They had just kind of moved a few years prior to that from Corpus Christi to San Antonio to get into warehousing and distribution. And so they were building out Ritterman Road, what we see here today. And I got in the late 80s, 88, 89. I started as a sanitation worker, man, right across the street here. Cleaning up the warehouse, man, and slowly moved into an order selector position where you were picking up boxes, loading up trucks, and those trucks would take the product to the stores. And that was a young man's game. I mean, I was 130 pounds, 28-inch waist. And, God just put it in me that, this ain't a lifelong gig here. You're not going to have the physicality to do this the rest of your life. And, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I don't know how to do either very well. I'm a young guy, took on a lot of responsibility. So I knew that I had to better myself. And I had, prior to all of that, I had gotten back and got my GED. So I had gotten my GED even though I didn't graduate from high school. And then while I was at the warehouse, I decided to go to college, pursue a degree in electronic engineering, computer science, focused mostly on electronics and engineering. I went to a trade tech college that had accreditation to move on to a 4-year university and get your bachelor's. But you know, it was hard. It was hard to work full time, keep up with the family. So I was moved from warehouse to store operations because it was easier for me to work overnight and go straight to school than to get off at 4 a.m, go home, freshen up. I'd take a nap. Next thing I knew, I'd wake up. It was 10 a.m. It was like, oh, I missed 3 classes, 2 classes. So I got to HEB and moved over to store operations, became a stock control manager overnight, managing a crew overnight, finished my degree with an associate's. And I thought, well, this is not what I want to do, And I went to go work for a company called Telstar. I stayed with HEB part-time and I went to go work full-time. A company called Telstar. It was the ex-wife of the owner for Diamond Shamrock. They had gotten divorced. She had come into a lot of money and she started up this company. And there were fuel monitoring systems on fleet fuel pumps. So if you had a fleet of vehicles, we had these computer devices, monitoring systems on the fuel pumps that would track the drivers, the mileage, the maintenance of the vehicles. And I gave them about a year of my life, and I was working on motherboards and all kinds of stuff and doing field installation work, all computerized stuff. And they went belly up. The company went under, and I went back to HEB and told my manager at the time, I said, hey, I'd like to come back full time if you got a spot. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Again, I just think it was that work ethic. When I look back at my life, Pastor, I break it down into 3 areas, man: mercy, grace, and favor.
Favor.
Yeah. I had mercy even before I knew Christ, that in all the things I had done as a young person, I didn't get killed. I didn't end up in prison. And I can tell you, most of the guys I hung out with very few exceptions, and I'm one of those exceptions, most of those guys are dead or in prison today. And God just showed me mercy. Why me? Then he showed me grace, that while I was still a sinner, he died on that cross for me, man. And he just changed me. He radically changed my life. And then favor, because, I ended up with a very successful career. I went back to HEB full time. I got in the School of Management training program with them, and ended up becoming a grocery manager, running several different stores and learning the retail business. So now HEB's grooming me with a purpose and a vision and kind of what am I going to do to put food on the table, right? Support my family. I took advantage of every training program HEB ever offered. I went through everything. And I just went at it hard, and I worked hard. And I did about 8 years in store operations. And then a pilot program came to the store. They picked us as the pilot store. And it was computerized ordering. We were going to take the handhelds away from the physical orders, all the order writers. And basically a computer was going to order your store. I mean, it was revolutionary back then. No retailers were doing it. And it took several years in the making. My GM, my general manager at the store that ran the whole store, said, look, I'm not a computer guy. I know you got a background, so why don't you be the store liaison to the corporate headquarters office? And anytime they're in the store, I want you to represent them. Anytime you need to go to corporate, you're going to go talk on behalf of the store. And it was a tough program. It failed for many years before it became successful. And I did that for about a year. I stayed as a grocery manager, worked at the store off SA 37 off of Culebra and Grissom over there by SeaWorld. And the program manager, after about a year, said, "Hey, we're getting to roll this thing out, and we want to go now to multiple stores, and we'd love to have you on the team." So in '97, I moved over to corporate headquarters, man, as a business analyst. You know, they told me, "We don't want you for your technical skills. We need you for your business acumen, the fact that you understand how to operate a store, your background." And God just gave me the ability to connect with people.
Yeah.
Just very different. I really don't know how to say it. He gave me the ability to connect with people, and I began my career there. Worked with some great mentors, just great men that helped shape me. I was rough around the edges. You know, God was still working in me. I mean, he's still working in me, but I was rough. You know, I came from the streets, then I came from the warehouse, and the warehouse was rough. Then I come into store operations, where now you're more customer facing. You got to be a little bit more polished. And then I find myself at the corporate headquarters office, right? And all these Ivy Leaguers and guys that went to these big universities and schools. And I didn't have that background. And so very intimidated in the early parts of my career there. Very hard, very intimidated. I worked long hours.
Long hours. I was going to say that. I knew you for some of that time, I think.
Long hours I put in because I always felt like, you know, I got this motto that, you know, hard work beats talent any day.
Hard work beats talent.
Hard work beats talent, man. I've worked around some very smart, talented people, but they just didn't have the work ethic. So I didn't have the pedigree, but I had the work ethic, and I was gonna burn the midnight oil if I had to. Now, in hindsight, you grow up, you become more mature, you become a better leader. You realize, well, okay, I could have done things differently, but that's just the way I felt, what I had to do at the time. And God gave me favor, and I just kept growing. And I started as a business analyst and worked my way into a technical lead. Then I got into the management program at the corporate offices. And long story short, you know, I started as a janitor and I retired as a managing director, just below a vice president. And
not that many further levels in HEB leadership, right? I mean, there was.
Yeah, you know, once you get past the managing director position, then you go into the vice president roles. There's several levels there. Then you get into the officer. You know, once you get into vice president, you're an officer of the company. And again, you know, I mean, HEB was just so good to me. Gave me a career that I would have never had if you'd have told me 40 years ago that I was going to end up doing what I did for a living and the impact that I had on so many lives. One of the biggest reasons why I loved HEB is they never stifled my ability to show Christ in the midst of whatever partner impact was going on. And by the time I retired, I had 220 people under me and several leaders under me that helped me run the division. But and there was countless of times where you're doing life with people. You're spending more time at work in many cases than at home. And you got to show Jesus with skin on, man. And I never, ever in my entire career, 36 years, never felt hindered or prohibited.
You to back off.
Never once. You know, and I had great mentors. I had great people, and I tell you, Pastor, it's not easy. I tell people there's the retail way, and then there's the HEB way. And HEB is a very aggressive. It's a tough company, but they're awesome.
For those of you who would be listening, not in Texas, I have a lot of folks that tune into these these conversations that are from all over the country. And if you don't have an HEB grocery store in your city, you need one.
Amen.
It is absolutely phenomenal. There are some entities that really represent Texas well. One
That's
is
right.
Bluebell Ice Cream.
That's
One
right.
is Frostbank.
That's right.
And then we've got all that we've been talking about.
HEB.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was great. They gave me a career. They gave me education and training that, second to none.
Yeah.
And they gave me opportunity. And HEB is big on education. Charles Butt, the owner, he's a philanthropist, and he believes in education. But they also believe in results and hard work. And they're a company that, in many ways, your pedigree is just not that important.
Can you get the job done?
Can you get the job done? Are you hungry enough? Are you moldable?
Yeah.
Can we mold you? Can we train you? And I was a sponge. I just said, this is my opportunity. And, and I said, Lord, if you give me an opportunity, I'm going to always do right by you. And he did.
One of the things that consistently watching, as a friend, but as a pastor looking in on this, I have felt like, JJ, that you have been given a unique anointing, enabling by the Lord, as Joseph was given. Joseph, in prison, but then he had the gift that Pharaoh needed, and then he was brought out of prison and put at the right hand of Pharaoh. Daniel was another example of God enabling men to be exceptionally successful in completely secular settings.
Yeah.
And that has always blessed me about you. And then there's a few others that I've made note of over the years, that it isn't that you have to leave your relationship with Jesus
Amen.
inside the church building or inside your house when you go to work. You are who you are.
That's right.
There's not two different people. And how it can be that the Lord really will give you favor and will give you opportunities, but it's because you're willing to work your tail off. You're willing to, whatever it takes to get it done. They're not just paying you for your character. They're paying you for what you can get done, but as a part of that is the character that goes with it. And that's exceptional. I really hope younger folks who may be listening will get this, that that thing of, what is it, pedigree, or what's your statement about work always?
Hard work beats talent.
Hard work beats talent. Hard work beats talent.
That's right.
And that's
right.
Great truth.
And that's just the way I developed at HEB, and the respect that I ended up getting from the company. And I retired in May.
Yeah.
After 36 years, I hung it up. And, that was by design, given, next year will be 40 years. My wife and I have been married. And again, nobody gave us a chance 40 years ago. Anybody that knew us thought, that's a crazy bunch, ain't going to survive. And but man, the Lord's been good even in that. And she has been a cornerstone for me. She's put up with a lot. HEB, while I owe a lot, indebted to them for what they afforded me and the opportunities they gave me, I gave them a lot too. And one of the things that I don't regret, but in hindsight, when you're looking back, you're getting to that point in life where you're looking back a lot now, you're realizing, wow, I gave up a lot. I gave up a lot of time. Yeah. I was on for the better part of 18 years. My last 18 years at HEB, I was on 24/7. I ran a support division, and things break all the time.
They called you.
Yeah. At my level, it was rare that I would get engaged towards the end there, but my job was really to give my folks some air coverage with the VPs that were hounding them, and so I would have to get involved at my layer to be able to talk to the VPs. And put them at ease. If we had a system down issue that was impacting the company, well, obviously you're going to get called.
Right.
But yeah, so Annie does not know what it is to have me without my phone tethered, or I've been on number of vacations where I've had to walk away, and get on a call and do stuff like that. And she understood. So this season that we're in, I just retired. It's been an interesting one. It's been good. But who'd have thought I would have ended up here?
Well,
Based on where I started,
yeah.
Kid with no plan, no direction, no outlook in life, to God just getting a hold of me, working me on the inside, reshaping me on the outside, and then just the favor. I go back to that word because I'm just like, Lord, why me? And you realize that God's got you where he's got you for a reason.
Yes, he does.
And there's a purpose in that. And while HEB trained me professionally, God was working on me spiritually.
There you go.
And so you put that armor on every day. And there were times where I walked into HEB, and I'm not kidding. There were a better part of several years where I sat in a parking lot and I would pray before I walked in that building. And I would say, Lord, today is the day that you have made. Let me be strong today. Give me today, not tomorrow. Give me today what I need to walk in there, because I was very intimidated at the beginning. I didn't appreciate the value that I brought to the table because I was sitting around all these Ivy Leaguers. And the Lord really, he gave me a vision many, many years ago in an encounter with a couple of business guys that I realized, I can't do what they do, but they can't do what I do. And it became very evident that there's value in what I can bring to the table. And then I let the Lord just kind of work in my heart on that. And when I got past that is really when my career took off. I was really hindering myself. I was keeping myself down. And when I realized that I have worth and value to bring to this table, doesn't matter who's in the room, it got me all the way to the highest places of HEB, the biggest people that run that company till this day. I sat in boardrooms with them. I sat in private rooms with them, and we talked about the future and the business of HEB, and phenomenal company.
That's a profound statement. I can't do what they do.
That's right.
But they can't do what I do.
Yeah.
We gotta have you back.
Amen, brother.
We need to chase that. Okay.
Amen.
And some other things, and I'm excited about what this next chapter of your life is going to be.
Thank you for this opportunity. I always love bragging on Jesus, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What he's done in our life.
Folks, thank you for being a part with us today. Thank you for tuning into this conversation. I hope you'll pass this on. If you know of somebody younger, or somebody in the throes of things, what am I supposed to do? Where do I need to go? There's some of the things that JJ has shared are very insightful and really powerful. And that old thing of that, what is it?
Talent.
Talent.
Hard work beats talent.
Hard work beats talent. Hang on to that one. That's something to chew on. Well, the Lord bless you, and thank you for being a part with us today, and we'll see you next time.